What's going on, everyone? So this is another part of the Digital Foundry video of the Switch movie. I guess you could say they did a hardware review and everything else because it's 2 hours long. So I'm trying to get like the good stuff for everyone so we can do this. You guys have seen me do this with PlayStation interviews, Xbox interviews, Phil Spencer interviews, all types of stuff. So now we're doing it here so we can get all the good stuff and all the stuff that needs to be fixed, criticized, all that. So here we're going to talk about backwards compatibility, which, let me just say this. I don't understand. I agree with what John is saying, Rich is saying, I mean, about they could have knocked it out the park and had a home run if they would have promoted their backwards compatibility system because it's actually really good. And there's no positive news about people even saying anything about it because they don't have a clue. And here, which I knew about this, I just didn't go around promoting it, but I guess we could do it now. But here we're going to highlight how good the backwards compatibility system is. And you'll hear him say something here real quick as I rewind for you guys, so it gives you that idea. So let's get into this. Let's see how tests work. I'm also going to talk about something else too that's interesting. All those issues that people were talking about with all those games, they fixed the majority of that. So it's like a 99% success rate now. There's like 1% still that they're working on, but they got to it really fast. That's why I said wait till launch. So yeah, take a look at what they say right here real quick.
Here, and they didn't at all. We just left until launch to find out how these games ran.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. This is the best backwards compatibility Nintendo has ever done. This is absolutely blows away everything, and they've had a lot of this over the years.
Yeah, I agree with him. So we're gonna go right back to that right now. This is where it starts.
Okay, let's talk about backwards compatibility, where we've already established that the Switch 2 is throwing more system resources at Switch 1 games, resulting in better performance, which I think is pretty fantastic. It was one of our concerns going into this. I think we can sort of categorize how this all works by just throwing up a series of examples here. And we're going to kick off with the one that I actually put out a video about on launch day, which is two games, Batman Arkham Knight and The Witcher 3. Now, in these titles...
I want to clarify something, too. According to this recent post I was reading, they're working to actually get a lot of these games with Switch 2 patches to fix the resolution and all that. But yeah, oh God, this is one of the worst ports. I wouldn't. And like I said, man, I always have my PC and everything else, so I would never even think, unless I was a handheld freak, and I'm not.
Both of them target 30 frames per second, but they're so challenging for various ways on the original Switch 1 that you rarely actually got there, specifically in those real stress test scenes like driving in the Batmobile or running around Novigrad in The Witcher 3. What that video showed is that pretty much all of those problems are sorted out, and I think this is sorted out.
Yeah, this is a perfect example. It's the CPU boost mode is automatic, guys. So the CPU that you're using in Switch 1, when you switch over to the Switch 2, it automatically uses that CPU. Backwards compatibility. They have it built in. They didn't tell anybody about this. I'm like, why are you not saying anything? That's crazy. Those are big features that Microsoft has promoted for a long time, that Sony started promoting with the PS5. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, this is where I feel like the company sometimes could be a little bit weird, or like just in like their own Disney world, where it's like these are things that would help you get more positive promotion big time. So yeah, every game gets a CPU boost mode, backwards compatibility. Every game gets the SSD upgrade. You know how you went from the HDD from the SSD from PS4 to PS5? The Switch 2 has that too. So not only you're getting faster speeds and loadings, but you're getting faster CPU. And there's a lot of games, because the Switch 1 was not as powerful as the other ones, they were doing a lot of dynamic resolution scaling. So the game will probably drop down to 560p. You know what I mean? Or drop down to like, 480p instead of just staying at 800 or 900p or 1080p. And with the Switch 2, it would stay at 1080p because the CPU is strong enough and it doesn't need to drop down. And it'll be not only at a higher resolution, not dynamic, but running at a lock 30. Or if it doesn't have 30, it runs at 60. It's really nice.
In a number of ways. Obviously, the CPU is faster. Obviously, the GPU is faster, and you're getting GPU resources thrown at it to pretty much...
And you're not seeing any of that stuttering and artifacting going on over here because it's stabilized and there's no dynamic, no blurring down, none of that.
Counter any situation there. I think that's pretty awesome stuff. I think the thing I want to point out, though, and it's really specific to Arkham Knight more generally, is that the stuttering was just so bad there. Maybe it's a storage thing, maybe it's a bandwidth thing, maybe it's a CPU thing. But to see pretty much all of that stutter complete.
But you see, it's just completely locked and fixed. And now you would perform better. Though, please still release a patch for this because this port was cheeks. Yeah.
Resolved. It's pretty remarkable. The same with Novigrad in The Witcher 3 here. It just hums along. It just works at the intended 30 frames per second.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think that's pretty impressive stuff. 60 frames per second games. If you're sort of like in a sort of 40 to 50 to 60 frames per second no man's land, as you are in Bayonetta and Bayonetta 3, etc.
So guys, this is another game I'm waiting on a patch for. My Pro Controller's pretty much charged. But yeah, I do have it downloaded, and he's right. It is so awesome to know. These are some of the games I've downloaded. Bayonetta is down there. It was just first, but I've been testing a lot of other things too. And I have a lot of other stuff to test too, but it is nice knowing. I'm telling you, there's sometimes we'd get to 40, 36, you know what I mean? Now it's going to 60, you know what I mean? That's significant performance. We're not talking about graphics, but more like the automatic performance boost that you are getting in games. It's really nice. You guys have seen in the last video, if you didn't too, there's just a lot of settings that are also very nice on here. If you don't know about it, you have to do this, you know what I mean? Obviously you can go up to 4K. Like I told people, if you're not doing HDR, do full range and do your own color aspect on it. It's really nice rather than limited. It has it automatically on this, but look at this. When you do that, it's a little bit too bright and it's not colored the way you want it to be. So you kind of see that, right? Now watch this. This is what I mean, because I have a setup like this with my monitor. That's why, guys. So, also, put this on compatible. Trust me, it's worth it. Full range. See that? Look at that texture of color right there. You guys can decide what you want to do. This is something I just wanted to help you guys out with because I don't think a lot of people know about that setting, and it actually helps by making the colors more richer and more darker in a way things are not too much bright. You know what I mean? You don't want that. You want more richer colors.
Those games will just run locked at 60 frames per second on the Switch 2. I think that's pretty remarkable stuff. I think that's excellent. And yeah, I mean, in terms of finding the limits, just going to go back to Dragon Quest Builders 3 here, where you can see that differential, 7, 8, 9 frames per second on Switch 1. And, we're getting like a 2.3, 2.4 times performance increase on Switch 2 there. I mean, what I like about this comparison is that it actually shows you
Switch
that
1
it's not a
performance.
bottomless pit of system resources that you've got available. Not everything.
Now, you can tell there's actually some type of issue going on with this game. That's why it's not going to 30, but it should easily. So there's something they may have to resume with this with Square, and they'll work this out. But good Lord, why even release this?
Thing will go to 60 frames per second, but you're seeing a performance increase there that is such that in most realistic scenarios, a game that can run at 60 frames per second will run at 60 frames per second. It's just, when you really sort of pile on the pressure, pile on the pain for those Switch 1 games, you will find the limits. And Dragon
Man, I'm glad that y'all can at least play the game now. What the hell?
Quest Builders 2, that's the game that really does sort of define that limit there. Oliver, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so in general, like you said, games do run a lot fast. You get a pretty impressive multiple in terms of performance in games that are running with unlocked frame rates. On the Switch 1, I did some of my own testing. So I tested a lot of kind of trash. Okay, well, I don't want to say that. A lot of less polished games, perhaps. One of those games was Aqua Moto Racing Topia,
Yes.
which is kind of a wave race style game that I played. It goes from about 25 to 40 FPS on Switch 1, not a very good experience, to basically a locked 60 on Switch 2.
Wow.
Feels a lot better. Not an amazing game, but much more playable on Switch 2. XCOM 2, a kind of very challenged port of a bigger title.
I like what he's doing. It's not necessarily about whether this game is good or not, but look, dude, this was 27 frames here. Now we're going to 60. Are you kidding me? There's a major difference without even needing an update. Your whole entire library is getting boosted here. We're seeing this by the CPU. Also by the memory a little bit and by the just express jump in speed. I've seen loading tests where games are loaded 15 seconds faster, 20 seconds faster. Animal Crossing went up massively. So these are the things people are talking about, because when you're getting your Switch 2, you're like, I'm not just getting Mario Kart World and have to wait next month to Donkey Kong or third-party games that I have on my PC. All my games that I have are now playing better. Some games I'm like, I don't want to play this because it's just not playable. Now it's playable. And it just, it's just a nice thing to have. So people are just not talking about it. And like I said, their backwards compatibility system is getting just where Microsoft and Sony's are at. It's improving, but nobody said anything about it, because I'm gonna have to say a big part of this is their fault for not promoting this. Ridiculous.
Title goes from about 20 FPS minimum here on Switch 1 to 60 FPS here, with just brief stutters during intense camera movement on Switch 2. So runs a lot better there. Definitely a big multiple.
That's why we need Digital Foundry.
Resident Evil 5 is kind of one that's a little bit less challenged, but it goes from a wobbly 30 to 60 to a locked 60 on Switch 2. Again, feels great now. I was kind of upset they didn't include a 30 FPS cap before, but now I'm actually...
Yo, what in the hell?
Pretty happy that it didn't include a 30 FPS cap now, because it runs pretty well on Switch 2. I also tested some games that aren't supposed to work according to Nintendo, because they have a list of games that have compatibility issues, games that won't start, things like that. So Star Wars Republic Commando, which is originally an Xbox and PC game, I believe, ran with pretty bad performance in the OG unit. For whatever reason, it was just like 40 to 60 FPS, 30 FPS, down as low as 20 FPS, I think, in the launch code. But on Switch 2, it performs a little bit better, a little bit higher frame rate. But it weirdly, the camera sometimes shoots up and you face the sky out of nowhere. So one frame you'll be facing forwards, and then one frame you'll be looking up at the sky. And then you have to move your camera back down. Very awkward, very bizarre. So that's obviously a compatibility issue with that title. Not intended. Grid Autosport is a game that I played quite a lot of on Switch 1. On the compatibility list as having issues, it crashes at launch. Very unfortunate. Okay. Trials Rising, another game on the compatibility list. Okay. It freezes for long periods at the start.
That's still on that screen. He's right. By the way, that investigation issue that people were complaining about, they fixed the majority of those games already. That's what I mean. At launch, most of it was resolved. There's still a few games like that and a few others, but it's a 99% success rate. For their first time doing backwards compatibility, they're always leaving generations behind. They did a really good job. So we're seeing that here, but there's obviously going to be just, that little sliver of hiccups here and there. But out of 15-something thousand games, yeah, they fixed, like I said, 99% are working.
Part of certain events.
You can go on their site and see it.
So you'll load up an event, it'll freeze for like a minute in place, and then it'll start. So that's awkward. I did try a number of games though on the list that are supposed to have issues that I didn't spot immediate issues with. So like Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy, Insane Collection, Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath, WRC8, all those seem to run fine for me, but I was only playing 4.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because they fixed the majority of that, and they recently had updated that list. It needs to get out. I should have covered that too, but I didn't. But I have it on my Twitter somewhere in likes. I do a lot of likes because it's sometimes for news that I want to get to later, because I'll be tweeting other stuff. But if you guys go to the website, let me see if I could just get this real quick. If not, then we'll just, let's see, Nintendo Switch 2 backwards compatibility update. I think it's here, y'all. This is where see, they fixed the majority of it now. If you go down here, it actually got updated. Software that cannot be used to Switch 2, and now they have that going there. Game compatibility issues. The information provided here is current as of June 5th. Like I said, they updated it. So Nintendo is continuing to improve compatibility, including by working with publishers. Games with issues that prevent progress on Switch 2, including games with startup issues, and then Nintendo Switch game issues that have been resolved. They literally, this is the updated list. See, they fixed literally the majority of these games. The stuff he was talking about is here. Just so that I can update this and help you guys out. You know how I like to get the information. So these have been resolved. Now it's just those few games he was talking about. And that's literally here. So if you guys want to know, the list is here. These are the games just left over, right? Because remember what he just said? Grid? You see what I'm saying? It's right there, Grid Autosport. And he was talking about, what was that other game he was just talking about? Yo, I literally just seen it here. Star Wars. See, this issue is being investigated. So these are the games that are left, but they fixed the other stuff. So they are working on it. But these are games nobody plays. But for the most part, it's just this little stuff. Maybe Overwatch 2. They definitely got to get to that. But that's just to give you guys the truth. Like I said, you want to see the truth. You know me. Whatever it is what it is. But yeah, they fixed the majority of the other stuff. It's all gone.
Or, a cursory
so I'll let them know that.
Of course, I didn't have time to test in depth, but maybe there are some issues with those titles later on, but they were not obvious and immediate to me, at least. One issue here, I think, is that Nintendo should at least have a warning that those games won't run on Switch 2, I feel, if not blocking it outright like Sony does.
Yeah, I don't think they know about that list. They let you know there. It's right there. They're the only ones that did that. Everybody else, they had issues you had to find out about.
In some cases, right? I feel like they should at least warn you that the games are not necessarily going to run fine, because I can just imagine, especially if you're someone with a larger collection, you have some of these games in your library, you're loading up these games, you weren't necessarily checking every single one against the Nintendo compatibility list, and so you're kind of left like frustrated and questioning like what's going on here. If you are playing one of those games and it does crash or it does have an issue, you're kind of wondering like, is there a problem with my unit? Do I need to reinstall it? Do I need to re-download it? Do I need to reset my system?
He's right, though, because you could be thinking that there's something wrong with your system because you don't know that that game has a problem with the system. But like I said, if you go here, it lets you know, and they tell you this issue is being investigated. It has issues starting up. Look, go right here. Games with issues that prevent progress, including games with startup issues. It's like the freezing and all that. They let you know that. They've made a PDF for everybody and put it right here. They've been very professional about other issues, honestly. That's one thing I like. And like I said, they fixed. So you had 15,122 games, and 99% are now working. Because look, this is where you see the issues. They fixed everything. No issues resolved. So that's why I tell people don't jump ahead and wait. I was waiting. You know what I mean? Now I'm covering it, and now we're seeing the issues.
What's going on here? So I wish they had some kind of OS level warning, at least, telling you this game might not be fully compatible with your Switch
that
system.
I can understand.
That's something I think they should implement. But outside of that,
or put it on a Nintendo app, right? Yeah, I mean, he has a good point.
The backwards compatibility situation, I think we can all agree, has been better than I think we expected.
Yeah, way better.
Pre-launch stuff. Nintendo did not really talk about this too much, but it actually turns out the backwards compatibility situation is a very good situation, kind of in line with what we get like on the PS5 or Series X when we're playing older titles. It is a big performance improvement.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the performance boost is similar, if not better, than what we saw between PS4 Pro and PS5, which we lauded at the time as being great. And it's the same here, really. I think it's pretty fantastic. Yeah. What do you make of that, John? I mean, this is like a marketing point that Nintendo could have really hammered home here, and they didn't at all. We just left until launch to find out how these games ran.
Oh, no. Boing. Yeah. No, seriously, guys, he's right. A lot of this is their fault. This console could have been showing off a lot better and a lot of more things, but I think when it comes to them, they're so into like not caring about specs and all that because they don't have, but they need to realize that this type of stuff still helps though, because you need to give people more information. But they're always sometimes they'll hide like the specs. They're funny. That company does not necessarily usually hide anything. They usually share everything. But when it comes to specs, all the time, Nintendo is always. I said they play this little Disney game with you, and I just think it's funny.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. This is the best backwards compatibility Nintendo has ever done.
Yeah,
this is absolutely blows away everything, and they've had a lot of this over the years, but this is incredible. They've done a great job here, but it has shades of the PlayStation 5, where we were left with that exact same question, where we were like, "Oh, this is not going to be good." You know, all signs pointing to this not working well, and then the system arrives, and we're like, "Wait, this is amazing! Like, it's really good. It almost seems like limitless power." As we learned, it's not, but it feels that way, as nearly every game just instantly maxes out their performance.
And I could imagine the people that suffered with this only forever with stuff like that, and now they're getting this experience. I'm kind of happy for them because I'm like, okay, you guys went through that. You know what I mean? I would choose the better settings because I have that option. Because with Nintendo, like I told you guys, it's all about first party for me. I don't see the point of having a Nintendo console if I'm not getting first party games. You know what I mean? That's just how I am. But this stuff is, like I said, it's nice, and I cover things because it's for the whole community. It's not just about me and what I want to get up and cover. No, I do this because this also is going to help people out too. I could just be doing content for algorithms, but it's like, no, we got to do and build other algorithms that actually help people and everything. You guys will see me try to do other content. It's like I'm trying to build different algorithms. I don't want to be no salt farmer 24/7.
Targets, which is fantastic.
I'm more than that.
I too am a little bit surprised by that, especially given the dearth of actual Switch 2 native software at launch and very little talks about future announcements. Like, being able to say like, hey, this makes everything on Switch 1 way better is cool, but maybe they're afraid of making Switch 1 owners feel bad. I don't know. They don't want to.
Yeah,
they don't want to
them.
hype that too much. Like, oh yeah,
It's a good point.
You know, remember that crusty old Switch? We've got that beat. My experience has largely been in line with you guys, though. I've tested a few more obscure games, if you will.
And I've tested older games too, guys. I've done the same thing where I'm like, wait, hold on, is this image even clear? I was playing a Warriors game because it needed dynamic resolution, and I looked it up, and I'm like, I remember playing this on my Switch 1. It didn't even look this good. It got blurry sometimes too, but not like that though. I'm like, wait, hold on, is this running like way better too? Because when I get all these enemies on the screen, I'm not getting any dips. Then I was testing other games too, and I'm like, okay, yeah, man, that is straight 60 frames. You know what I mean? A lot of other games, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is actually cool. So, why the hell didn't they say anything about this?
Well, maybe not obscure, but like, you know, things that I really noticed, like some of the East games, for instance, from Falcom and other Falcom games, they all seem to support 1080p native on the screen, and it fixes all the performance profile problems that they've had, such as the recent remake of the Celceta no Jutai, whatever it was called, the English one. They released a new version of that in Japan. It was originally made for PS Vita. Despite being Vita and later PS4, it ran like garbage on the original Switch, like a fully unlocked frame rate, and then it's just perfect on Switch 2, and it's got the 1080p UI and everything, which is nice. I kept mentioning Mameda no Bakeru, which is an awesome Goemon style game, and I cannot hammer home enough how bad that was prior on the regular Switch 1. Like, it was, I was crushed when I first played it, because it's like 20 to 60 FPS pretty much. It's very unstable, Unity based game. It was terrible. Now it's a lock 60. It currently runs better than I can get it to run on the Steam Deck using the PC version. There's levels on the Steam Deck where it just can't even hold 60, and it starts dipping into the 50s. And even that was kind of annoying. The Switch 2 just no problem powers through lock 60. It's great. And that's basically been true for everything I've tested. That said, there was a few disappointments. I saw some lists floating around, and that kind of taught me, like, don't believe everything you read, where on the list it said both Sonic Frontiers and Spark the Electric Jester 3, which is a great game, by the way, were 60 FPS in Switch 2. Don't believe those lies. They are not 60. They are 30.
Thanks for clarifying that, brother. So there we have it. This is long enough. You guys see more positive news about this? It's actually, worth talking about. And you guys saw my other video about some issues that are going on. So yeah, I'm not done watching this. There's a lot to cover here. And then, we got other content around the corner too. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. All right. Like, comment, subscribe. Y'all have a great day. Peace out.